And, cause you think, oh, okay, that's just, that's not very many. And the other thing is, you're not really motivated to save anything, because you don't care if I catch any fish, you may not even know me, you figure, okay, those fish are all gonna disappear somehow or some way, so I might as well get as much as I can. Because the next guy that's coming along is gonna do the same thing, okay? So that's the idea of the tragedy of the commons, is if you have common property, people will use it up, they'll waste it, they'll be, that is one of the critiques about, in England, they have free healthcare. And one of the critiques is, if you walk in the door, now, it's not free, because everybody pays taxes for it, okay? But you don't pay as you walk in. For example, when I go to group health, I have to pay a copay, all right? So when you walk into a clinic in Canada or England, you just say, hey, this is what's wrong with me, they attend to you, there's no bill at the point of service, okay? You're not billed for it, because everybody contributes to it. So some critics of that system have said, well, people start going in for the simplest little things because it doesn't cost anything. So, they get a cold, I better go see what the doctor says. And even if it's a common cold, well, that takes time, resources, money, and all that stuff, okay? So, y'all get a notion about that. So, what I want to talk about is this. What role should the government have in that? Or should the government, let me rephrase it. How do we prevent the tragedy from occurring? Should the government be proactive in that, or should people take it upon themselves without government pressure to do this, or maybe peer pressure, or what? So, what do you think?
Well, I think there's a bigger problem, the way this has been presented, it's like each individual is looked at as a drain on society.
Mm-hmm.
When major corporations are more of a drain on society's resources than all the individuals put together are. And that would go for healthcare as well as fish populations.
Okay.
Because now that Obamacare is in place, every single employer in the country is saying, well, we don't have to provide you with health insurance.
I would say every single one, but a lot of them are,
Yeah.
A lot of them have changed that, yeah.
And, you look at all the commercial fisheries, they're out there pulling tons and tons.
Excess.
Well, they're killing stuff they're not even looking for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the waste is monumental, there's no doubt about that, okay? But this becomes one of the big issues is, in our country, we value freedom and liberty and the right to make individual choices, okay? But at the same time, we want security. We want to make sure when we go to the grocery store, there's food to buy.
Right.
Or when we drive down the street, that we're safe, or whatever. But it's like the big battle that takes place in this country. What's more important, liberty or security? Are they both equally important? And how do we balance that? Especially, and what I want to focus on
By making
is
everybody responsible.
Okay, but in the economy is what I want to focus on. Well, we can talk about a whole bunch of things, but let's just focus on, because you guys are doing finance. But, so, repeat what you just said, please?
By making everyone responsible.
So how do you do that?
You
While
gotta
still
carefully
making sure
manage.
everybody's free and secure.
That's the big
Usage fee.
education.
Okay.
Start off the.
So let's start with that. How would you, because there are some people that say, let's keep the
Beginning
government out of
when they
this.
are young, when they're from their parents.
So what are you gonna tell our young to make them cognizant of the tragedy of the commons?
In their pool.
That I have no clue.
Okay, go with a little plastic pool, give them an example. Okay, well, that's possible. Real life examples are the ones that work the best, okay?
The more painful they are, the better they stick with you.
Okay, but, is there a guarantee that everybody's gonna get the message or react to the message in the same way? Okay, so what would you say?
I was saying teach a child to take responsibility for their actions.
Okay, but then again, you're assuming that you're gonna have parents or an educational system that are actually gonna impact them in the way you want them to, okay? Anything else? Any other ways?
Well, there's only so much that can be controlled by any means.
Okay, well, should the government, even attempt to do this. So for example, you say, I can take 2 salmon, except I'm on the ocean, I can take 1. Who's telling you that?
The DFW.
Okay,
Florida
which is?
Fish and Wildlife, which is
Yeah,
the government.
The government, okay.
So it,
So you're losing your freedom to make
right,
sure.
to make sure that it'll be there for my grandkids.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be.
Okay.
On it.
are you
But
okay
then,
with that?
Well, I feel like, the Indians overfish.
Okay.
And they run nets across the whole river, and they're supposed to be for their own personal use, but I guarantee you can go trade a Subway sandwich for a salmon right now on the river.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
They're not very expensive, right?
Right.
So, now, the natives would see it in a different way, but I understand what you're saying.
Right.
Okay, so.
But here's the thing though, our supply of salmon is also the rest of the world's supply of salmon.
Mhm.
Because they swim right out through Puget Sound out into the ocean, and guess who's out there waiting to net them
Catch 'em,
up?
right?
The trawlers, yeah.
Yeah, from
So-
all over the world.
But here's the thing, let me just interject this real quick. You mentioned that the big problem in your mind are the corporations. But the Supreme Court has said corporations are people, just like you and I, and therefore they have the same rights as we do.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, I don't necessarily agree with that as well. I see them as a completely separate entity
It
and a
was not a
citizen, but,
unanimous decision.
I'm sorry?
It was not a unanimous decision.
No, but it was a 5-4 decision,
Yes, so
but
it's a split vote.
even the President of the United States, in front of the whole nation, in front of the Supreme Court,
Yes.
kind of chewed them out a little bit at the State of the Union speech. So, and those are the kind of things that has gotten Trump a lot of, I guess what you would call support, is because he is, even though he is a corporation, he is saying we gotta go after these corporations for this kind of behavior, all right? So, but, what's that?
I'm making a bad joke, sorry.
Oh, okay, I like that joke, so,
Oh, I said to bankrupt him again.
okay. That could
And
be.
bail them out.
Bail him out.
And bail 'em.
So, yeah, he's got a interesting history,
Play the
I'll
system.
leave it at that. So, anyways, that's what we're gonna be talking about, and Zara, this is what we're gonna be talking about in our history class as well. So, anyways, so, let me give you a case study that some of you
Alright.
may remember.
I do.
Okay, so,
Fort Penn.
I'm from Michigan, so, at the time, when I was a kid, we were the car capital of the world, so, do you all remember the early 70s when the first oil embargo hit us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, first off, we got the big muscle cars and the big Cadillacs and Buicks, and, so very bad with the gas mileage. So the Japanese come in with their little Hondas and do quite well in the marketplace because they're getting 25 miles per gallon back then.
Back then, huh?
And so Ford decides, hey, we're gonna compete with that. So they create this little sedan called the Pinto. What was the problem with the Pinto?
The fuel tank in the rear, when people rear-ended them, they blew up.
Blew up, okay. Now, if you go on YouTube and you type in Ford Pinto crash test, you'll see several videos of these things. So, and do you know why they blew up? It was an engineering flaw.
Yeah, the fuel tank would be pushed into the rear differential and it would break the seams on the tank and then it got on the hot exhaust and
Okay, now explain what a rear differential is.
it's the part that transmits the power from the
Yeah.
engine to the ground.
There was another problem too. As you recall, all the bumpers back in those days were steel, stainless steel, okay? And they were held on by big bolts. And the way they lined up the bolts sometimes would puncture the tank as well. So the bolts got ridges on them, right? And when those ridges go across that
Sparks.
tank, you get sparks. And of course, most people don't drive around with a full gas tank, which means you got fumes, which means you have a beautiful explosion, okay? Beautiful unless you're in the cars, okay? And it's very tragic. So,
My brother-in-law still swears by him.
well,
He's still got like 5 of them.
oh, it does?
Really? Wow.
Okay. I'm sure if anybody, does he have a bumper sticker that says, you might be too close or something?
I don't know. Good, I don't know.
You can
So,
research it.
how should we approach this problem? People start driving the car down the road, and we notice after a short period of time, they start exploding. What should the role of the government be in this case?
Well, they issue a safety recall and redesign it.
Okay, so they actually get involved and say to Ford, you have to take those off the road.
Take them off the road.
Okay. Are there other options?
Yeah,
What?
They actually fixed that problem.
Eventually, yeah.
With a $5 piece of plastic.
Oh, did they, at least
Yeah.
for hitting the differential?
It's just a shield that went between
Okay.
the fuel tank and the differential.
Well, here's the thing though, for a short period of time, Ford did nothing, even after they knew these things were exploding, and even after they knew why. And the reason they did, well, let me ask, why do you think they did nothing?
It would
Too
have cost them
expensive.
money.
Yeah, to fix it, now, initially, I think they believed this was gonna be a bigger problem as far as fixing it, but you guys know what it means to retool a plant?
Mhm.
Basically rearrange it, okay? They initially thought, oh man, we're gonna have to do some rearranging on part of the plant, this is gonna cost millions and millions of dollars. So their initial reaction is, we'll just pay off the claimants on this. So if somebody's in an accident, they're survivors, or if they live, they can sue us, it's cheaper to pay them off than it is to retool the plants, okay? But eventually the government said, nah, you gotta bring these babies in and fix them, okay? So, but I'm gonna talk about two theorists who say, well, they don't agree on how this could be handled. And each of them believe that, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to finance, your goal is to make as much money as you can with as little investment as you can, right? Okay, or get as big a return on your investment as possible, okay? But this is the big issue, and just about every election in my lifetime, this has been one of the issues, which is, should the government have a major or a minor role in the marketplace, okay? And also, you guys understand the difference between a right and a responsibility? So what is a right?
A right is something that's basically handed because you are you.
Okay, so it's something the government gives to you, right? And says, you can do this, we will ensure that you can do this. So, the big one in the news is the Second Amendment. What is the Second Amendment? Right to bear arms.
Or right to breathe, it's a God-given right.
Okay, that's not the Bill of Rights, but yeah, we have the right to
Basically, human rights.
happiness, right? At least according to the Declaration of Independence, you have the right to pursue happiness, okay. Now, so what is, that's a right, Zarin, what is a responsibility? Any idea? Okay, anybody help them out? Yeah.
Something that you should do just because you know it's the right.
It's an answer to your actions.
That's
Okay.
morality.
All right. Another way to look at it, and those are all good, is the idea that, okay, the government gives you rights, responsibility means you give back the government something, okay, or the community. So, for example, we used to have a draft, all right, up until, was it 1975, 74-ish?
No, it was done in 73.
73, okay. Okay, well, they're talking about bringing it back, but nothing. So, including women.
Can't.
About time you pulled your weight around here.
Yeah, I already tried your list. I'm a mother, I can.
Oh, okay. Well, they're not gonna do it for anybody. It would start with the 18-year-old females like in 2019 or something like that. There's a bill being introduced on that, so. Anyways, but that's a responsibility, something you give back. Pay taxes, that's a responsibility. So, that's the other thing. How do you balance those? What should we expect and what should we give in this whole process? So it's kind of a multifaceted issue. And so I don't want to get real deep in it, but I just want to bring out a couple of basic ideas that I'm aware of that I think are interesting to discuss, okay? So, so when we talk about security versus liberty, one of the things we talk about, and this is a thing I called the social costs and individual benefit. And where do I have it? Actually, did I take that slide on there? Okay, anyways. Oh, no, I don't know where it is. It disappeared. But, do you guys know what the butterfly effect is? Or chaos theory? Anybody? What's that?
It's usually like something that creates a ripple of movement or action that eventually just gets bigger and
Yeah.
bigger.
So if I clap my hands here, Donald Trump's hair may blow up straight or something.
Keep clapping.
Yeah, okay. All right, so here's what some economists talk about is this. So, any of y'all driving to work today, or school, I should say? You driving? Okay, what do you drive?
2000 Windstar van.
Okay, so you ban. So what's the gas mileage on that van?
I have no clue.
What would you guess?
Probably around
20, 25?
16.
Oh, 60.
16
All right.
to 20.
All right, 16 to 20, all right? So, now, you own that van. Can I assume you own that van? All right, so you got that and you bought the gas for it.
Mhm.
You feel like you should have the right to drive that van anytime you want?
Mhm.
Okay, why?
Because I paid for it, I maintain it. I have the privilege of driving because I got my driver's license and passed
Okay.
the test.
And you pay your registration for
Okay.
taxes on the road.
Yeah,
So-
I just paid the
That's
$89
your
for
responsibility.
registration.
Our society has said, if you pay for it, if you own it, if you follow the stipulations, you can drive it, okay? Now, so that means you have a van and you have individual choice with that van. What is the social cost? I drove into work today too, so I'm not thinking of it. What is the social cost of you and I driving into work today?
The social cost
Yeah,
or the environmental cost?
well, either,
Well,
because
we're,
environment impacts the whole society,
okay, well, we do put emissions into the air.
okay?
That affects our ozone layer, it affects the temperatures.
Okay.
The-
So, today you and I both contributed to global climate change perhaps? In our
Probably.
own little way, okay. Do you know what the biggest polluter of the Puget Sound is?
Fertilizer.
No, but that's close. Oil and gas runoff from the roads.
Oh, I heard that.
Okay, now, lately, we've been trying to do that.
Subject,
If you go to certain parts of the town, they'll have drains that say, don't dump your waste in here, because it goes to the sound, but that is, what I've heard, and I'm not gonna test myself, but somebody told me that's like 30 or 40% of the, pollution in there is petroleum or petroleum-related
Have you
products.
seen
okay?
all the solids that they pump into Puget Sound?
Well, these are-
Every community,
Used to be a lot
sewage
worse.
treatment plant.
Yeah, so, yeah, the Puget Sound at one time was thought as a big toilet bowl, you know, and twice a day it gets flushed.
Yeah.
That was the belief. So, that's what that's all about. Now, what should be more important? Our right to drive or your right to breathe? Should it, is it? You agree with that?
You can live without driving,
Okay.
you can't live without breathing.
Are you prepared to tell him not to drive anymore?
No, I have no.
I didn't drive for a long time.
Okay. But that's some of the issues we're gonna,
But
talk
who
about.
said we're running out of oxygen or air?
Well, it's changing, yeah.
Who proved it?
It's not only from atmospheric interference of the vehicles polluting, it's also because the Brazilian rainforest, they estimate that it produces pretty close to 35% of our oxygen. It's being torn down, cut down for farming now.
Acres a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the plants that they're planting for food and stuff will not replenish the same amount of oxygen as the rainforest, so.
So, I mean, every time I turn on the light switch to come teach, I'm impacting the environment, because that energy's gotta come somewhere. So, that's the other thing, is, for every individual action, there is a social cost. And, one of the things you gotta ask, or I like to ask myself is, so, I guess it gets a little bit back to the tragedy of the commons, okay? So, we got lots of roads, we got lots of nice cars, I like to drive, should I have that right? Or should people say, okay, you can drive, but we're gonna have to limit how much you drive, okay? It may come to that someday, you never know, okay, we're not there yet. Now, another concept I want you to know is the idea of the Baptists versus the moonshiners. And when you think of a Baptist, what is
I'm
this?
both.
What is, oh, okay, you can't be both. What is the stereotype of a Baptist?
God-fearing Christian.
Yeah, okay, God-fearing, so what does that mean?
Bible thinkers.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Means they're in your face all the time.
About what?
Not being good, basically.
Passionate
Okay.
about
Their
their
version
faith.
of being good.
Okay, so in economic theory, the Baptists are, if the economist calls you a Baptist in this equation, it's basically the idea that everything should be done for the good, whatever that is, okay? So if you are running a business, your goal shouldn't be to make profits. Profits are part of it, sure, okay, you can't have a business if you don't make money. But right next to profits should be fair treatment of the customers, fair treatment of the workers, fair treatment of the environment. So in this equation, that's what the Baptists are. And we'll talk about a guy, theorist, a little later that kind of believes in that. So it's sort of like how about Costco? You guys go to Costco once in a while? You ever talk to a Costco worker? Anybody know him? Do they like working there?
They're not real happy.
Or aren't they? Okay. Most of the ones I've talked to like them a lot.
Yeah, in the receiving, when I delivered, they were mostly pretty happy,
Okay,
content.
why?
Yeah.
Our company took care of it,
Yeah.
didn't work them too hard.
Okay, gave
Good bennies.
you know, like Saturday nights, you don't have to work, you know, and, paid them a good starting wage, there's a chance for benefits. In some cases, they'll help pay for your education. So, I had a student a couple of years ago, he ended up going to the Marines, but he'd been working at Costco, and when he finally graduated and he was gonna go to boot camp, he's like, man, I hate losing this job, because they made it so easy for him to go to school. So that would be the Baptist idea of running a business, okay? Now, is that a good way to run a business?
Yeah,
Why?
I would consider it. You keep your employees happy, you keep your customers happy, your customers come back, your employees stay there.
Okay, and you're gonna get more production. Statistics say you'll get better production out of your employees. There's less turnover, which means you have to train less people. Now, you said there was an exception to this, and I believe that.
Well, you know, I mean, the people that I've talked to said it's a very high-stress environment.
I can imagine
Because,
that.
you know, you're constantly working on the edge. You know, I mean, the place is full from morning till night.
Oh, yeah.
7 days a week, you know, and no matter what job you have in there, man, you better be backsides
Yeah.
and elbows.
And the place is always immaculate, right?
Oh, yeah.
You go in the bathrooms, you go anywhere, and it looks pretty nice. So you know somebody's always cleaning that place, and when I go, usually somebody pushing the floor scrubber around and stuff like that. So, yeah, I used to work in retail when I was in college, I was slinging change at a liquor store, but we were nowhere near as big as Costco, but we used to call the customers sheep, because literally, when the door opened, they'd just be milling around, grabbing stuff, demands here and there, you know. So you literally, that's why fast food is such a hard job. Anybody y'all work fast food?
Never really worked that.
Okay, that is a highly stressful job. So I can see that, the logic of what you're saying, for sure. Okay. Now, what about a moonshiner? Aaron, what's a moonshiner? You know, is that before your time? All right, you know what a moonshiner is? What's a moonshiner?
People who produce alcohol in a legal way.
Okay, so basically cooking up your own stew of alcohol, or whatever you're making, mostly alcohol.
Grain
Selling
liquor.
it. Yeah, grain liquor. Moonshiners are not people that are necessarily concerned about the rules or the benefit of society. Moonshiners are the ones that are all in it for the money, okay? And so they represent businesses that put profit well above everything else.
Oh, I couldn't say that.
So, should you have a right to be a moonshiner in our society?
Sure.
Okay, a lot of Americans think so. Donald Trump would say sure as well, okay? And if you know anything about his business practices, from what I've read, I don't know the guy personally, but from what I've read, profit is high on his list, okay? And that's not to say he doesn't treat his employees fairly, but that's pretty high up on his list. So, can you think of a corporation that you feel is mostly profit-driven, doesn't really care about?
Microsoft.
Microsoft? Okay.
Chase Bank.
Chase? Okay, I would say,
Oh, Games Workshop too.
banks would be high on the list for most of us. Okay, I don't think banks. What did you say? Eric?
Credit card.
Games Workshop.
What's that?
It's a gaming company out of Britain, or out of England, that makes miniature games.
Okay.
They sell models that you put together and then
Oh,
paint
okay.
and play tabletop strategy games.
Yeah.
$50 or something.
And I started playing in '95, and since then, their prices have gone astronomical, their business practices have become cutthroat.
That seems to happen a lot. As
That's
companies
economics.
get comfortable and
I-
big, you lose a lot of
Well,
those.
when I started, the whole thing that got me into it was their whole concept was this game is for fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's not to to win or lose, it's just to go out and have fun with your friends.
Yeah.
And we would promote that to get more players into the game, because the models were expensive, you know, you're basically paying $30 for a unit of guys. So, at that time.
Yeah.
Now it's up over like 60 for some of them. And, that was working out really good, because you don't wanna have to put out all this money and go and play a game against people and get trounced all the time. That's not gonna make you happy enough to keep playing the game.
Sure.
So you're gonna be out all that money. But the older guys left, the newer guys came into management, and the newer guys had the idea, well, we wanna make tons of money.
So put a new face on it, and, okay, and
Yeah.
that's a common complaint about a lot of organizations, that
Yeah.
over time, they lose that personal touch, although
Yeah.
some companies try to, do it. Anyways, another thing I want you to keep in mind is the political spectrum, okay? Now, when I hear politicians, like if liberals demonize the conservatives, or the conservatives demonize the liberals, I find that highly inaccurate, because I think most of us have a little bit of something, you know, like, I would probably say I'm more liberal than conservative, but there are some things that I think when I hear an idea come from a conservative, say, yeah, I could go with that sounds like a good idea. And I think most of them are like that to a certain degree. We may shade one way or the other. Occasionally you'll find, you know, like a fascist, well, they're pretty, very conservative, okay? Communists, yeah, you could say they're pretty liberal, but most of us are somewhere in the middle. And what your system is, whatever you're categorized is, kind of influences how you feel the government should insert itself into the economy, okay? And part of that is based on interpretation. So what does it mean to interpret something? I don't know if we talked about interpretation the other day, so
Well, it's to look at something and make up your mind on a topic, you know.
Okay.
I don't know,
Basically what it is.
based on your personal experience.
okay, a lot of it is past experiences, who you are. For example, you're a female, I'm a male, you and I are not gonna see eye to eye on certain things just because of our genders. And what is it about gender that makes you think different than a man, do you think?
Wanna hear my theory?
Yeah, let's hear it. That's all I'm giving you on my theory, so throw one back at me.
That too. But I think that men think in boxes, women think in strings.
Okay,
Men have a box for every topic, they open it up, they say what they want, they close it, they put it away.
okay,
Women have strings attached to everything,
okay.
and that's what makes us a little different when it comes to understanding.
So you're suggesting women are more nuanced or more,
Men are general, women overthink.
okay, you all agree with, you guys all agree with that?
Yeah.
You say that's
No, you
yellow.
say shade 'cause you don't want to jump yet.
No, it's like if you go, well, that's yellow, the guys go, yeah, looks yellow to me. Women will go, actually, that's more of a different shade.
All right, they got different
Yeah,
colors
that's
for
more
everything.
blonde.
All right, I understand.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. But, you know, interpretation comes in two basic ways, okay? One is called express, and express means it's written in a way that just about everybody agrees with. They don't really fight about it. So, for example, in my Constitution, my little pocket Constitution, I look at the Seventh Amendment. Anybody know what the Seventh Amendment says? Okay, Seventh Amendment says that if you and I have a disagreement over something and the value of what we're arguing about is worth $20 or more, we can go to court and have the judge fix it, okay? If it's $19.99 or less, then we gotta figure it out
Figure it
ourselves.
out.
Okay, I have never heard anybody arguing about that, okay? In fact, I generally don't hear people, you know, using it at all. But anyways, $20 was a lot of money back then, and so that's one thing. Now, express is when it's written in a way that is open to interpretation, okay? So let me again use the Second Amendment, so we talk about a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What does that mean? Does that mean I can own an AR-15?
Yes.
It just means that you have the right to bear arms, to protect yourself.
So you're saying, yes, I can have a AR-15?
Yeah.
Okay, you're saying no?
Because an AR-15 is a legal weapon.
Okay, but you're saying,
That, the intent of the Seventh Amendment
Second.
wasn't, or Second Amendment wasn't to say that one weapon over another is allowed, you know, it's just you have the right to bear
To form a
arms.
militia to keep the government in control.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
So
know,
you're saying no to the AR-15?
No, it says, yeah, you can own whatever you want.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't
AR-15.
infringe on other people's rights.
So you say AR-15 is okay?
Yes.
Okay, how about you?
You can get an Abrams tank if you want to.
Well, can you?
I'll
Shoot
park
the
that next to
You
my
can
house.
afford
Well,
one.
you can get an
I don't know
Abrams
about
tank,
an
but
Abrams, but a
you can
World
get
War
a
II
tank-
tank
you
you
can get
can
a
buy.
cannon with
We
it?
live.
Yeah,
Sure.
With an Abrams, a functional
not the
cannon?
Abrams, but you can get a World War II tank.
Oh, yeah.
but here's the
Not
thing, you
Abrams.
know, you hear a lot of people talking about AR-15s and they get their knickers in a knot over them. You know,
Their knickers in a
myself, I could give a good rip less because I can take any one of my hunting rifles that is a semi-automatic and do the same amount of damage with it that anybody could do with an AR-15. It's the intent of the person holding it.
Oh,
You know?
absolutely. But, and here's the thing about the AR-15, you say semi-automatic. I was listening to an interview with one of the engineers of the original AR-15, which was M16 was the original gun, and then they, over the years, they modified it, made it lighter and things like that. And he said it had the option of fully automatic or semi-automatic. And he said, we always stress to the soldiers to use semi-automatic because
Right.
you're gonna stop every time you push and it is hone in on your target a little more than with just spraying. So you know, you're gonna get more bang for the bullet, so to speak.
Actually, in basic training, that's what they teach. You
Okay.
can't, if you shoot more than 3 bullets at a time, your instructor's gonna be on
Yeah.
you big time.
Cause I don't want you wasting, cause if you're out in the field.
No,
I just
they
showed a
want you to be
video,
able to target.
in my civics class, we just talked about the Battle of Mogadishu and, back in Somalia, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And, you know, the soldier, it was supposed to be, grab the guys, go back home, so most of the soldiers just took a couple extra rounds, not much. And of course, they get stuck in there for a day and a half, and, so some guys are running out of ammo. And, so the point is, yeah, you don't want to just waste lead, okay, because you may need it, you don't know that. So anyways, but what you guys are showing me is you're not all interpreting the amendment the same way. So, you say the RR-15 would be okay. Where do you
Yeah.
draw the line?
Okay, the law is already stated. They have already passed a law that fully automatic weapons are illegal.
Okay, do you agree with that law?
For fully automatic weapons, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Is it
do.
constitutional?
That I do.
Is it
Because you don't need fully automatic weapons for home
Okay,
defense.
let me reread this. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It says nothing about AR-15, semi-automatics, automatics, Abrams tanks, bazookas, F-25 fighters. So.
That's true, yeah.
So, yeah,
Well,
you're right,
then-
our society has said, we're gonna make laws, but we don't all agree where where the laws are right now.
Yeah.
I'm talking about nationwide. And the other thing is, if we put a law that says you can't own a bazooka, is that constitutional? Because it says arms, what the hell are they talking about?
At the time it was written,
Well,
muskets.
okay, yeah, that's what, that may, or maybe a cannon.
Muskets and swords.
Okay.
And that's what they're trying to push through to get the gun control laws is because when it was written, it was muskets. They weren't intending
Well,
that.
but we don't
the
know
intention.
that for sure.
Well-
We have some evidence, but there's no one person that said, and there's no line in this that says, okay, if we get guns that shoot faster than the current muskets that we have, or rifles, muzzle-loading rifles, then we're gonna have to rethink this. And so, basically what they are doing is taking, the pro, like the NRA, is saying arms means arms, which means weapons. And it doesn't put a ceiling on those weapons, okay? That's what we're arguing about is, should there be a ceiling? And if there is a ceiling, where should it be?
So
So,
here's the thing, guns have evolved to the point technologically where through ballistics and the number of rounds that they're capable of
Oh, yeah.
holding and all of that, it's gotten to the point of ridiculousness. Now the only improvements that they can make on a weapon is to make it lighter, make the optics better,
Or-
put computers on them to make them do things they could never do any other way, you know.
and those are coming, yeah.
Yeah,
Or get
and
away from a
don't get me
ballistic
wrong,
system
I'm not
altogether.
anti-gun. I have a lot of guns
Yeah.
myself, but I don't think that John Q. Public needs to have something that's
Well,
capable of firing off, 30 rounds in.
so let's bring this back to the economy, okay? Winchester, Remington, you think of some of the big gun companies out there, all right? And they're making tons of money off these weapons, okay? Should they have the right to make weapons off of guns? Especially guns that are used by some people to kill mass numbers of other people?
But you can't regulate the intent
Well,
a person has.
but this gets back to the tragedy of the commons. If you let one person buy a gun, no big deal. There are 12 million AR-15s out there right now, and you just gotta figure, okay, of those 12 million owners, well, maybe there's not, because some people have multiple guns, but let's say there's 8 million owners, okay? Out of that, there's gonna be, some of those people are gonna do something, what we would call crazy with those guns. And therefore, affect the tragedy, or affect the commons of safety. So should the government be able to say to a company, you can't sell those? Or should the government be able to say, if you sell those and somebody uses it in an improper way, we can sue you?
They tried that, they couldn't get away.
Well, they're gonna try it again, because after the Sandy Hook, the parents are going back to try to sue Remington.
Really?
They
Yeah.
can't do that because that would spill over into.
Well, you know why
every
the only reason they can't do
single-
that is because Congress passed a bill that said the gun companies, it's the only companies that cannot be held responsible for the use of their device. Every other company, cars, whoever makes your toaster, whatever, they can all be sued. The gun companies have an exclusion, a real special relationship there. So, this is gonna work its way through the court system, we'll see.
Tobacco company lost, right?
Yeah, and that's what they're gonna try and do, is treat the gun companies like a tobacco company. I mean, do you think it's?
But the difference is, though, is the government needs the gun manufacturers.
Yes, they do, because we are the biggest weapons distributor in the world, we need it for our military. I show a video about the 50 caliber, you guys ever shot a 50 caliber? Okay, it's like a small cannon, all right? Now, they are legal in 49 states, not in California, but every other state, and, they debate, well, do you really need a 50 cal to?
You need to have a federal firearms
Yes.
license to have it, though.
Just in case.
What's that?
You have to have a federal 3 firearms license to have it.
Yeah, okay, so, but the fact is you can still have it. So, but you brought up the tobacco companies. Should, the tobacco companies, like, who made Winston's or Marlboros, what companies are those?
Philip
Reynolds?
Morris.
Yeah, R.J.
R.J.
Reynolds.
Reynolds.
Is R.J. Reynolds responsible for me buying cigarettes and getting cancer?
No.
Why not?
Well, based on
Because
their,
that was your choice.
Okay,
based on their marketing practices, they are,
okay, so you're saying the way they sold their product,
yeah.
all right, how did they sell their product? That would take the responsibility
Portraying
off?
it
the
as if you smoke our cigarettes,
Be
you're gonna
successful,
be
get the
the
gun.
cool guy on the
Yeah.
block, and, you're be driving a Corvette, and
Okay.
all the women will love you.
So if you were smoking Marlboro Unfiltered, you were a tough guy.
Oh, yeah.
right? Or Camel Unfiltered, okay? Yeah, you're right. So, should we be responsible enough to see through that BS or,
Oh, yeah.
or not?
Yes.
Well, and the other thing is they knowingly put chemicals in
Okay, they
the
made them addicted,
tobacco
right?
to make them addictive.
Sure, okay.
So that's a whole
There you
different
go.
kettle of fish.
But
Well,
you
but-
as an individual still have the right to say, okay, I don't wanna smoke,
Sure you
you
do.
know?
But what if
That's
you're
your
addicted to
personal
it?
choice.
What if you're addicted?
You'd have to smoke it a couple of cigarettes in the first place to do it. That was your choice to smoke those in the
Okay.
first place.
So let's
That's
assume,
still your
because
choice.
the argument most of these
Because you
people
were
made,
addicted at that point.
I understand what you're saying, but my job, I think, is to play devil's advocate. so-
Yeah, I
But,
understand it.
but some people would say, hey, I started smoking, people our age would say, I started smoking before I knew that cigarettes were bad. I mean, the guy that Trump picked for vice president of the to run with him as vice president, in 1998 said cigarettes will not kill you. He was against all regulations on the cigarette companies, okay? That wasn't, 98 wasn't that long
In
ago,
fact,
okay?
then you can send your kid off to the store with some money going, hey, go pick up.
Hey, when I was a
pack of
kid, that's
cigarettes.
what we did. Hey, go get
Yeah,
a gallon of milk
yeah.
and 2 packs of Winston's, all right?
Bring me
So
back a
that's what I
bottle of
do. Put 'em in my
something.
bike,
Okay,
we'll go on
it's
down the
fine.
road.
Yeah,
The road
so
goes
age
on.
restriction.
But, so the gun companies, have done something similar. Now, there's nothing necessarily well, are guns addicting?
Not really.
Don't you get an adrenaline rush off that? Can adrenaline?
Smell of gunpowder.
I go years without ever firing on a
Okay.
single one of mine.
But have you ever talked to anybody that just says, man, I get such a high out of doing this, whatever it is, and you
Well,
shoot guns or?
you know, and I do, cause I'm a bow hunter.
Okay.
And also kind of, turkey hunting is kind of like bass fishing to me, and it is kind of adrenaline rush when you're communicating with an animal, you're calling it in,
Yeah.
and they're talking back to you. I do get a rush, I do get a
It's
high.
like a competition.
Yeah, I do get a high off that.
Okay, and you're like, okay, I'm testing my skills, I'm
Right.
testing my.
And then you're successful, yeah, I think there is a rush.
And what if you don't, what if you come home and do,
Yeah, still, it's better to send it home with the wife.
Okay. All right, so
Here, here.
you're outdoors, right? And that can be an
Right,
adrenaline rush.
maybe
just
that's
get
what
out
it
away
is,
from
being
other
out
humans.
free and in the
Fair
woods.
enough. So the AR-15 was marketed as this. Getting back to that engineer that I talked about, who helped develop the M16, he said this gun was designed to kill, all right? That's what we wanted. We wanted something that could compete with the AK-47 and actually try to be more effective. So what they did is they lengthened the barrel a little bit, and then they put a bigger propulsion system that would shoot the bullet out much faster than before, which meant it was much accurate. They cut down on the weight, and they did some different things with the bullets. And that's why it's such a big thing. And then what they did, so anyways, they made it a great killing weapon. So a lot of soldiers liked it, okay? I'm not sure it's better than the AK-47, I've never shot either one of them, but some people.
The AK round is a lot bigger, a lot heavier.
Yeah.
The M16, the 223, when you shoot it, it's so high velocity when it comes out that when it hits something, it'll start tumbling.
Yeah, and he
So
mentioned that in the interview too, yeah. The bullet was designed to do as much damage as it could,
Yeah.
okay? The other thing, you make smaller bullets, you can carry more of them.
Yeah.
But the one plus I heard about the AK-47 is you could throw it in a mud puddle, pick it up and start shooting, and
Yeah,
it worked just as well as
almost
if it was
indestructible.
dry.
Still
So-
hurt a lot when they hit your foot as well.
Well, that's true.
But, here's the problem, that the big picture, is if you go after the gun industry because their products can be used to kill people, where do you stop?
Well, and
How
that's a
many
very good question.
traffic deaths are caused by car accidents?
Yeah.
There is more people die in this country every single day
But here's
from car
how I would
accidents.
respond to that, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, the guy in Nice who just wiped out a whole bunch of people, he used a truck to kill most of those people, right?
Yep.
So we outlaw trucks, okay?
What I'm getting at is, if a person is hell-bent to kill people,
He's gonna
there
try
is
no matter
a
what.
multitude
Oh,
of
yeah.
ways they can get the job done.
Now, the counter to that would be this, and that would be, Remington, among other companies, sometime in the sixties decided they wanted to sell these guns to, civilians. So, they rebranded them as sporting rifles, okay, or competition rifles. And, basically, the ads I saw, I don't remember these when I was a kid, but, do you guys remember the old BB, the Daisy BB gun,
Yeah.
commercials, and it was just.
You're gonna put your eye out with
Being
that.
out with your dad, shooting cans and targets and stuff like that.
Right.
Well, that's what the Remington did. So we're gonna make this, we're gonna sell them like people sell BB guns. And that's got the momentum going, okay? So, basically what they said was, these aren't killing, the tools, these are toys that we can use, just like you say you're a bow hunter, okay? Well, nobody goes around wiping people out with bows, not too often, I've never heard about. But these guys said, treat it like a bow, or something like that. Is that false advertising? You say yes?
Yeah, because kids don't know better.
Okay.
I never heard them called a toy, so,
Yeah.
Well,
they were
I-
considered a sporting
They-
weapon.
Okay, I
This is
stand
my
corrected.
weapon,
They
this
weren't
is my gun.
directly called a toy, but they were marketed as toys.
And they
Yeah.
always, either, in writing or through their commercial advertisements, said that there needed to be adult supervision.
Okay.
The problem is that society nowadays, it's been so long since the bulk of people in society have had any kind of adult supervision.
Well, some people say we have too much adult supervision of our kids now.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
back
but
in
it
my
never taught
you
day,
how to raise
you
them in
stepped
order.
out of line, you got the crap knocked out of you.
Well, okay.
They
You
don't
know?
do that, sorry.
Nowadays,
Is it
you
still
go
that
out
way
and
there?
kill 20 people, and it's like, well, you know, sorry, but you gotta go to prison, but, you
Blame
know,
society.
Okay.
back in the day.
Yeah, times have changed a little bit, I will agree with that.
You might not have survived to go to court to get your 20-year sentence, you know, if you killed 20 people.
Fair
That's
enough.
right.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
but, you know, again, let's bring it back to finance. If you go to, and I mentioned this last week, if you go to a financial advisor and they say, I can make you money, I can get you 10% growth on your investment, okay? And it turns out they lost your money, okay, or a portion of your money. So you actually end up with less money than you started with. Do you have the right to sue this
No.
You
person?
just sign anything?
Signed in the contract.
You usually sign a contract before they do any work, okay?
Yeah, and it's in the contract that they are not responsible for any losses.
There you
Okay.
go, then no.
But that's always in the small print, right?
Oh,
They-
always.
they-
Should there be a law that says, you gotta put that as boldly as, we can make you money or not?
Oh, you have to read the contract?
Should it be that way? Because what they, when you do the commercials on the radio, we'll make you lots of money, and then, they really speed up the tape and they're, you know,
Rattle it
speak,
on.
30 words every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So, is that false advertising when they really minimize the downside and maximize the potential?
Yeah,
So,
To a degree.
I would say so.
okay,
But
If
you-
they don't, if they're not totally upfront and honest with you about the entire procedure, of what can happen either way, then they are falsely telling you what can happen. Pretty much like any scam nowadays, like I got hit with a zombie bill scam
okay,
not too long ago. After 7 years, if you haven't paid the medical bills, after 7 years, they become defunct, you don't have to ever pay them.
okay.
But if a credit collector gets a hold of them and then bullies you into making one payment, they become active again,
Okay,
and that's called the zombie scam.
all right, I've heard that one. So, I will,
No statute of limitation.
But you know, you were originally implying that, you know,
Unless you make a payment, then they.
if each one of us, you know, committed an act, say, negativity, no matter how minor, you know, the cumulative effect of millions and millions of people doing negative things, you know, makes this big negative, you know. Well, the thing of it is, if you go after one industry because they produce a product that a crazy person can use to kill people,
Mhm.
and you put them out of business, you wipe them out financially, you're not just wiping out that company. There's the trickle-down effect, you know, they employ people, and those people employ other people, you know, the money gets dispersed as it trickles down. And, you know, if you do that to enough industries, now all of a sudden, you're back to, you have to take your rifle or your bow out in the woods to kill squirrels to eat.
Sure.
You know,
Now, what,
when are you gonna stop tearing down the world?
well, but again, getting back to your, where do you draw the line?
Society.
When an auto company makes a defective product, we have rules and regulations about that, and the only people that bitch are the owners and the stockholders in the car company, okay? As a car owner, I want my car to be as safe as possible, I think you all do, right? But the gun industry is basically saying, we don't want any restrictions, and so that's where the restrictions people say, hold it, we restrict everything else. I mean, to drive your van, you said you had to register it, you had to license, you had to prove at one point you could actually operate this thing. So some people are saying, why don't we do that with guns? Why don't, if you wanna own a gun, fine, but you have to have, like my dad used to be a pilot. He had, to keep his license, he had to have so many hours in the air every year, okay, otherwise you lose your license. So would it be fair to say to gun owners, hey, you can have your AR-15, but once you have to log so many hours a year at a gun range, and you, every 5 years, you have to take a safety course, unless you were in the military or something like that, you know, but.
Yeah, but I don't think you should, the government should control what you have in your own home. You
Okay.
shouldn't have to register anything.
So you shouldn't have to
Sure.
register your car?
No, not constitutional,
What?
because it's not constitutionally.
Well, why do we tell people
Doesn't
you
say.
have to have a license for a car?
To
It's a
approved.
2-ton
Approved,
death
uh,
machine.
Operated.
Okay.
You can't have anarchy out there on the
Okay.
roads, man. you
Well,
know?
but some people are saying we're having anarchy out there with the guns right now.
Oh, yeah.
No, we're just having an over,
I see it as a government control, just like they've done in Australia and England. If you follow suit, first they started with registration, then they started with confiscation. And so registration leads to confiscation of arms.
Well,
And the less the government knows about me, the better off I am as an
okay,
individual.
and I think a lot of people would agree with you. But, again, playing devil's advocate, a lot of the people that say that, I don't know what your situation on this, but they say, government, stay out of my life, because it's private, and then they get on Facebook and basically announce to the world everything they're doing. Or they say, okay, I want people who are driving to have a license, because to get a license, you have to have insurance, and if you hit me, I wanna make sure I'm not paying for your accident. Why don't we do the same thing with guns? If you misuse that gun, should I, as a victim, be able to be compensated somehow for that? Either by an insurance policy that every gun owner has,
But here's
or,
the thing,
I
you
guess
know,
civil
people that.
litigation would be.
okay, but we don't have, why, even with car insurance, you have to go to civil court sometimes.
Yeah,
There's
but, you know,
license-
people who have car insurance that are perfect drivers,
Mhm.
never had an accident in their life, they're paying for all the bad drivers, you know?
Right.
And that would happen if
it
you were
would
an
be
insured
the
gun owner.
same
If insured
thing
guns,
with
yeah, the
terminals.
same thing would happen.
But that's, our health insurance, that's, you know, for example, I had a procedure, it was, did I talk about this? I can't, I'm running all my classes together somewhere. So I have a stent right about here in my body, and what do you think that cost to put a stent in? They basically cut a little slit in my abdomen and.
Probably about 80 to 150,000.
With or without anesthesia.
Well, they knocked me out, so the whole
Yeah.
No
program.
anesthesia, that
I'm
right
not
there is
that
like
tough.
$4,000.
Okay.
about 80.
Go on with that.
Okay, the last bill I saw was around 50 grand, it might have been a little bit more, but even, I mean, that little piece of pipe that they, you know, they couldn't go to
Just measure.
Lowe's and pick it up, they had to get it from Australia, because of the company that makes them. So, the long story, I mean, if I'd have paid that, I'd have had to sold my house, or, you know, it would have wiped me out. So, you buy insurance, so when a calamity happens, it's sort of like everybody is gonna pitch in to help me out, but at the same time, I'm pitching in when you guys have a calamity. That's so we create an insurance commons that everybody can draw on, okay? We know guns, people kill, with guns by accident. We know sometimes they do it on purpose. Same thing with cars. I mean, when somebody is texting, that's pretty negligent, right? But we say, hey, you're negligent, you're gonna pay. So, why not do that with guns?
Well, here's the other problem that you got
Okay.
is there's an awful lot of people in this world that just don't care.
Oh, you're right.
I mean,
You're never gonna wipe out all the problems.
because
Absolutely.
if you could make guns illegal or register them and regulate them into submission, the only people with guns would be the criminals.
Okay. But
And they
again, play
wouldn't be
devil's advocate, so
registered,
should we
they wouldn't
legalize
be
heroin?
regulated.
To play devil's advocate, should we legalize
They
heroin?
almost have by giving safe places for these
Well,
junkies to shoot the shit
and-
out
Or
of.
going in for methadone clinics.
Okay,
You know?
but, I mean, based on that argument, some people would say, so why have any laws at all? Because every law is gonna get broken, right? So, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just blaming you.
That's where responsible.
So,
Well, you know,
Community
back
comes
in the
into
old
play.
days, you know, and I'm not that old really, you know?
Okay.
And I've never committed a major crime where I would be in jeopardy of this. But I think what kept a lot of people that were borderline crazy from doing the things that the little voices told them to do was the fact that they were afraid if they did, they were gonna get killed. They were gonna get the death sentence,
okay,
you know? And now that you don't have that fear, you know,
Well, some states still have it though.
well, yeah, some do.
but here's the thing about the death sentence, and we have proof that sometimes we've executed an innocent person.
Oh, yeah.
So, there, again, you know, get back to the commons of security, well,
I'm
yeah, we
never-
got some people that shouldn't be walking the planet,
Yeah.
absolutely, okay? But is it worth killing innocent people to make sure the people that deserve it get what's coming to them? And
But,
so-
you know,
They
that's,
actually did a survey though in bunch of prisons talking to hardcore criminals, saying, if you would have thought about the sentence that you would have gotten before you did the crime, would you have done the crime? And they said, yeah. The sentence doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, I've read similar studies. I'm not an expert in the field, so anyways, let's just wrap it up for today. Next time we get together, we'll pursue this, but you guys have some great comments, and I love debating with y'all.
We like it.
So.
You're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, that's
But you know, yes, you gotta be the devil's advocate to keep it moving, man.
Well,
Keep
yeah,
it stirred
that's
up.
my job isn't to agree with you.
It's a
it's
big
to-
what-if game.
You ever read fiction books?
Oh, yeah, I read them all the time.
There's a science fiction book called Freehold.
Not familiar with that one.
I can't remember the author, but
Yeah, sure.
it basically explains about this planet that refused to join the UN, which is now the governing body of Earth and all these outside colony planets.
Okay.
Because their system was, you could only come and colonize on their planet if you were a responsible citizen.
Okay.
You had to have a job set up, you know, the whole line. There were no laws. The only government was an advisory citizens council, and to become a citizen, you had to raise money like Bill Gates,
Okay.
and then give it to the common fund for the planet.
Sounds like communism.
And then never
Yeah.
get, well, no, there was free trade. It was
Okay.
totally free. People carried guns. Basically what the UN tried doing was sending them all their reject people.
Okay.
And one guy went up to a gun booth and go, oh, we can buy guns? And the guy sold him a gun and a clip of ammo, and he tried shooting the guy before paying. Everybody else around him pulled out their gun and shot him dead.
Well, there you go.
And that was it.
So, self-government.
Self-government,
But,
yeah.
You know, the bottom line is, where are we gonna draw the lines? I keep coming back to what you said. So, we're drawing the lines for guns over here, and cars, we're drawing in a different place, and, you know, what banks can do, we're drawing it in a different place. What you can do when you're out fishing, we're drawing it in a certain place, so.
Well, you gotta find that middle ground,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, keep
and
everybody
maybe,
happy.
I guess what I'm looking for too is consistency, which is, okay, if we're gonna say you can't get more than 2 fish, what are we gonna do about the corporations that are killing dolphins when they're, trying to get tuna and wiping out
Right,
these
international waters.
Well,
dolphins, that, you know?
You know, look at the US government, they've been producing mercenaries for years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they train people how to do nothing but go out and kill.
Yes.
And when the US military is done with them, what are they gonna do? They hire themselves out to
French
third
Foreign
world
Legion.
countries.
Okay, or
you
you
know.
have the private contractors who make
Yeah.
tons more money.
Yeah,
than
which
the
used to
market.
be, back in the day, was an illegal occupation.
Yeah, well,
Mercenaries
money
used to be
changes.
federal.
Money changes, are all up. Okay, thanks for coming in. All right, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while.